Hi there, this is Mark Loughman from BAE, and we're here today with Mr. Steve I.
How you doing? Very nice to be here. All right.
Yeah, we spoke a while ago on the phone regarding some of our gear, and I know you wanted to try the 10 series stuff and the 500 series. So we bought you a 1073.
Yes, you did.
And a 1028 for the 10 series, and the 312A for the 500 series. And just let me know how you're liking it.
Well, you know, every few years I kind of go back to the drawing board and I really do forensic testing on gear because you know, there's so much new stuff in the market and there's stuff that you always want to try but you don't really know about. But I get really detail oriented. I mean, I check different cables, the lengths of the cables, you know, converters. I get really in depth, and I realize that the straightest signal path to the digital workstation is usually the cleanest and the best signal. And I found myself going into various kinds of outboard gear, right into Pro Tools, and then even mixing coming out, going into gear, and then into a particular type of stereo mixdown. And for a while I just wasn't even using my console.
Right. So
I got rid of it. You know, I'm having one built, but in the process I really needed to find what I would consider the very best outboard gear for my taste and what I do. And I have a little bit of everything.
Right. And
I got all this stuff together, and I did some real fine-tuned testing. And the way I did that is by taking stereo mixes and putting them through this gear, checking the EQ and checking especially the mic pre's. And same thing with recording. What I would do is I'd take a direct signal and I'd put it into a reamp.
Right.
And then send it out to the amps and then record it through a particular mic pre, record it through another mic pre, record it through. I used about 10 of the leading mic pre's in the industry, really. And when I was checking out the 10 series, it was like they were kind of like magic almost.
Wow.
It was just stunning to me because first of all, you know, when you EQ something, you listen and your ear tells you a particular, you know, sound, what you're looking for. But when you get in there, it's a feel thing. Right. You know, you got to sort of massage the frequencies, and EQs respond differently. Right. You know, and when I put my hands on those 10 series, I just it's the smoothest EQ I've ever heard, and the most responsive, but not in a harsh way, you know. Right. And it just adds a beautiful air, and the knobs are really easy to turn.
Well, that's it. I mean, first off, you're saying the feel, just tactile switches
here. It's unbelievable, yeah, and that's important.
Absolutely,
because that gives you an impression, almost like a psychological impression of what it sounds like. Yeah. You know, and just the way that it responds, like, you know, I mean, I've tried out all the original stuff and the reproduction stuff, and it's just really hard because there's so much hype in gear. Right. There's only one way of really knowing, and you have to test it with your own ears.
Own surroundings, yeah.
And some of it's personal taste, but right. I can't imagine that anybody that tested the way I was and listened the way I was would think that it was just a matter of personal taste. It was obviously superior. First of all, the mic pre's. Which, you know, I tested everything without EQ in. Right. And these just come back really fat and round and warm, and the edges aren't too sharp in the sound. And for the guitar, that's so important. And for kick drums and snares and stuff, because, you know, the guitar can be a pretty brash instrument at times, and, you know, when you add top end to make it cut, you just have to be so careful, especially with that 5K area, you know, because it just gets painful if it's a crappy EQ, you know, and if it's too sharp. But man, you can just EQ for days with this thing, and it just brings it to life. Well, I mean, congratulations, man!
Thank you.
It's really, for someone like me, it's like every time I put my hands on this thing to use it, it's like every day is Christmas.
Wow. And tell us a bit about the 312, because this, you know, is known for the harmonic distortion. The 312, because it uses Jensen transformers, you know, it handles transients better, it's punchier, It's the polar opposite of this. But what were you finding with the 312?
Well, I have
312A, I should say.
Yeah, I have I've had an API console for 20 years, you know, and I've always liked that sound, and I've experimented with taking out, you know, the op amps and stuff, and changing things around, and you know, I could never quite find anything that really retained the integrity of that old kind of, you know, API sound. And then when 500 series became popular, I went out and I bought racks of 500 series, and you know, a lot of it just sounds, you know, it's kind of well, I mean, just the technology, trying to cram all that technology in that little space.
Yeah.
For some things, it's great, you know.
Well, that's it for a pre. It's big enough where you can fit the transformers in, but they've got to be the right transformers.
They got to be the right transformers, and the transformers and the op amps were so important. And you know, when the new API stuff came along, and I was listening to it, it sounded good, you know. But I mean, I did, you know, direct comparisons with the old API stuff, and it just wasn't, you know, it sounded different to me,
right.
You know. But then, but I was looking for a happy medium, because all that old stuff, you know, you know, the transistors start bleeding or whatever,
right.
You know, and they get old, and you can't, you got to recap stuff, and you know, it just loses its juice sometimes. But when I came across the 312 stuff, that was just right, you know, it fit that bill. I mean, it was leagues above, for my ear, you know, leagues above what the remanufactured stuff was, and right up there with the integrity of the old stuff.
Well, that's what we're aiming for. Again, we don't, you know, we use the same parts and we build it the same way. It's all hand wired, so therefore it should sound the same, you know. Well, as close as damn it, you know.
Yeah, and you know, one of the reasons they stopped making these, from what I understand, the old stuff, was because you can't get the value for the amount of work that's involved.
Well, look at it. I mean,
but look at this. When you look at this, it's hand wired, and you can't get this value. You know what I mean? It's,
a lot of people, you know, they wouldn't take the time to time and money to hand wire everything.
Yeah, and they cheap out by, you know, putting cheap pots in, and you know, the weaker op amps. These are the op amps, or these are
the caps on the high frequency. But yeah, these are the transformers.
You're explaining to me and showing me these.
Yeah,
how they differ, and you know, it's a real find, and it's like an art form to be able to, you know, hand wire this stuff and make it sound like it does. It's really great.
Well, thanks very much for that, Steve.
Well, congratulations.
All
Thank
right.
you.